Previously in X-Men. Back when Wolverine worked as an agent for Canadian intelligence, he partnered with his American counterparts on many missions, especially Carol Danvers, whose personality currently resides in Logan's teammate, Rogue. It is safe to assume that there is also a long history between war veterans Wolverine and Colonel Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., who both have more than their fair share of secrets. I am Jason Lapidus, co-creator and artist behind Group of 7 Comics. Welcome to episode 194 of our ongoing read-through of the X-Men comics that became classic, as I take a look at Wolverine Nick Fury, the Scorpio Connection by Archie Goodwin and Howard Chaykin. Cover date of August 1989. Unlike our usual Tuesday night live stream episodes, where I'm partnered with writer and co-creator of Group of 7, Chris Sanigan, tonight I'm going solo as I needed to record this one in advance. And I'm taking a look at a book that I hadn't read before, and that is a contemporary of the moment in time that we are at in the series in 1989. At least in publication, it's a contemporary. Stylistically, it's very different, and we'll bump up against the continuity as we go through to see where it actually fits, because it's not a smooth August 1989 kind of comic. Before I dive into that, of course, you can support the channel by buying our books. Group of 7, A Most Secret Tale features 7 famous Canadian historical figures on a secret fictional mission to save the world. Written by Chris and drawn by me. And Peregrines, Flights, Fiends, and Fisticuffs. Special agents undercover as nurses defend against the unknown and unbelievable. Also written by Chris and drawn by me. Available on our website, group7comics.ca, where you can get them in both print and digital formats. And subscribe to the newsletter, where you'll stay up to date on upcoming comics, our appearances, and any other awesome breaking news. You'll note the art looks very different, as is the size of this. I mean, this is larger than a regular comic, especially in terms of its width. And what you're getting is these Marvel graphic novels from the 80s, was an effort to create bookshelf format reading that was of a higher quality print and more in-depth stories. Like I said, it's 64 pages, sort of in line with the Franco-Belgian album. So they're much wider, and it kind of enhances the reading experience, because the art is bigger and more visceral. Archie Goodwin writer, Howard Chaykin artist, Richard Ory and Barb Rausch color art and special effects, Ken Bruzenak letterer. The art is done through a completely different process than the regular monthly comic. The color is painted. I can see brush strokes, and what I think I'm looking at is art that might have been done, or color that might have been done, in something called the blue line method. So Chaykin does his inked line art, copied and printed back in blue line on maybe even acetate or like a plastic sheet, possibly on paper, and then the artists just paint right on that. And the black ink line is applied through an overlay afterward, over top of the color. So I see tiny little clues here that the figure of this person was originally, there's a layer of it in just this color. And like I said, I can see the brush strokes here, how it's applied. Because of this technique, and because of the quality of the paper it's being printed on, you can get really iridescent and vibrant colors that you would not be able to get through the 64 color printing process that most comics that we're used to, especially in a show like this, we're getting something very different than what's typical. And it's used for some interesting effect. Additionally, after the color is like, there are clues that I can see in the artwork when I look close that white is added after the painting is done. So I'm imagining they're using some acrylics and they're painting with acrylic and then coming back with like a white colored pencil or maybe a bit of Conte and creating these highlights over top of all of the colors for additional texture and lighting, and it's incredibly effective. So the story takes place, it starts out in Peru at Machu Picchu, and there is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. who's at this famous site, David Nanjiwara. He's a career spy. And as this survey team is doing their work, they get attacked and they can't figure out how. Their equipment is being shot at. Nanjiwara tries to get everyone to scatter, and they are picked off. He's sort of the only one left, and he decides to make a run and go on the attack, pops his grenade, creates a diversion, goes around the corner to find out where he thinks the shooter is, and is hit. And everyone is dead. And the assassin leaves behind the call of Scorpio. So other than, this awesome red that's getting used, this incredible purple for like the shadows, really unusual and beautiful. I find it really exciting. So whenever the shots get fired, or whatever they are, we're getting that. And like I mentioned before about the white, a lot of this white is just areas where the red is not applied. Other parts of it are actual spatter and, like I said, or even white paint being put on, or that Conte or colored pencil. Like here you can see is a tool for drawing that's being used. Like dry brush. It's a dry medium. And if I had to guess, I would say it's Conte or pencil crayon, or colored pencil. If you haven't seen Howard Chaykin's art before, it reminds me, he's a contemporary of like Frank Miller and Walt Simonson, Klaus Janson, those kinds of guys. And he exists in the Alex Toth school, where communication is the most important thing, clarity of storytelling, but he likes interesting page design too. You can see here, we have the echo of it, or just to balance that page out. Some interesting graphic design. We get a scene in New York at the health club that is sort of occupied by agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Here, we know this character. This is an MCU. This is Val. We get Nick Fury, Pumping Iron, and Dum Dum Dugan is spotting him. And they're talking about the aging process. And that is a theme that goes through this whole story about getting old and Nick trying to keep up and realizing that he's reached his limit. So there's that sort of ongoing theme about mortality. As the two have freshened up after their steam, they're heading out onto the street, and like Dum Dum Dugan's kids come running through. I'm guessing that, is he like separated or something, where like these kids are being returned to their dad, and mom brought us down to meet you. We're going to have hot dogs, go to the movies. It has that 1980s single dad vibe where he only gets the kids on a weekend kind of thing. I really like the colors on this page too, where it focuses on Fury by giving him his unique, like making him in his actual palette, where the other characters are just in that blue. Man, that blue is really beautiful in this paper. I really like in this book how the colorists create these outdoor scapes, like cityscapes, using just color as opposed to line art. And some neat graphic design pieces here. Part of it, at the heart of any Nick Fury comic, is the influence of Jim Steranko, who worked on him in the late 60s, taking over from Kirby. And Steranko had a youthful and exciting sense of design. So seeing things like this, these shapes, really remind me of Steranko's influence. And Nick is looking back on his past as again, foreshadowing for the rest of this issue. Really great here. Like, so a flat color is painted for Fury's face, and then the color artists have gone in with a white media. Like, I keep saying it's Conte. If you haven't used Conte before, it's sort of like a small piece of something that is almost like a blend between charcoal and a crayon. And now we're introduced our second character here. We get a little vignette of Arcade and his femme fatale assistant, known as Ms. Locke. Really fun idea of all these TV monitors and this awesome jukebox there. He's talking about how he wants to kill a new assignment, you know, like have a new mercenary assignment or hitman assignment. He's excited to kill the new people. And of course, it is the X-Men, or at least some of the X-Men. And you can see here, this is Rogue in a costume done by Silvestri. The John Romita Jr. version of Colossus. I don't think these two ever wore that at the same time. Wolverine and Dazzler back there. And that's the extent of the team that's here. So I think it's safe to say that it's after Colossus is injured. Rogue is already wearing this outfit, which makes it sort of Outback era. And it's just that Chaykin doesn't draw him in his contemporary outfit, which is actually bare-chested with a giant X-Men belt. And they realize as they get close, Wolverine here is protecting Rogue as the Arcade robot explodes. Another great use of color. Put Arcade in this purple as if he's a little bit in the shadow and he's in the foreground, where the X-Men are in color and they're in the middle ground. It separates them nicely on different planes to create depth. And then out of the jukebox comes a severed head, a robotic head, that Wolverine has no time for. And I like these poses where Wolverine is always in movement. Chaykin has a style reminiscent of, to me, like the line reminds me of Klaus Jansson's line a little bit, and Miller's line, and a little bit like Simonson as well. And those are his contemporaries, right? And his Wolverine is always in movement. He's acrobatic a little bit, quite agile, fluid. This is great. And put it all in red. Again, inspired color choices. And some weird, like, computer almost color choices there with that metal effect representing the metal of his claws. So we've met Wolverine. We've met Nick Fury. Fury gets the news that the team in Machu Picchu is killed. And the clues that are left behind, and they start to go to work. Fury has an issue. Something's wrong. Something's bugging him, so he's going to go at it alone, of course. Really nice, like, iridescent blue. And it's like an illuminated blue. It's really, really beautiful. Again, you get these areas of light that are just added after the paint is dried. It's a neat approach to it. Sort of like lay down your flat color and then, move on. Move on with that light media. So Logan shows up at the bar with Nick Fury and wants to have a chat with him about the friend that died on that mission, David Nanjawara. Nick has a lead that he's going on, something he needs to follow. It gives Logan sort of access to the team that's going to investigate, and he's going to do his own thing. And we were introduced to a couple new characters, including Mikkel and his mom here in purple, and these bikini-clad women who are interested in this kid on the port between Greece and Turkey. And he goes off with his mom, and they comment on his mother and their dynamic. I think they they make reference to maybe that's not really his mom. But we notice right away as they're on their boat heading off to wherever that Mikkel is actually Scorpio. And Scorpio was a villain that Nick Fury dealt with a generation ago that turned out to be his brother. Here we see that he has this thing called the Scorpio key, and it creates some sort of energy effect that disrupts and destroys, and he's showing that he knows how to use it well. Of course, showing it for the audience. And makes it clear that he was the one in Peru. That was his assignment, and he's been trained to tear apart S.H.I.E.L.D. He's going to kill the man who killed his father, Nick Fury. Which makes us believe that this is going to be Jack Fury's son. Now, Wolverine is in Machu Picchu, and he reminisces about his time when he was tracking a terrorist assassin in Australia. And he's in the desert and gets shot and left for dead. And he's dying, obviously, exposure to the elements, and his healing factor is keeping him alive, and he's left, and a man finds him there, and it's David Nanjawara. And he walks him through the desert and helps him survive. And these beautiful effects of the landscape are done the same. This color is painted flat, and then this is added in after to create these landscapes. And when they finally do get to a watering hole, they go to get a drink, and the barkeep basically makes a racist remark about David Nanjawara and how he doesn't serve anyone who is Aborigines. And Logan basically says, dude, this is your last chance. You give me 2 drinks, or this is your end. And the guy gives them 2 drinks. So they're bonded now, Logan and David. And as they're starting to get ready, the S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives are getting out their tech gear. Wolverine puts on his costume, and they start talking about, what is he doing? And they're talking about they're going to use science, and they think maybe his costume is actually not a costume, but maybe in his mind a hunting outfit as Wolverine gets ready. It's nice. Again, I like these poses. I like this one especially, truthfully. Wolverine is following a scent of some kind to an airfield. He starts doing some investigative work. We don't usually get to see this kind of Wolverine. And this is one of the things I really appreciate about Archie Goodwin is Archie's written here just like a classic espionage story. It could have been, Felix Leiter and James Bond. It could have been any 2 characters from different organizations that are dealing with something from their past. It doesn't have to be a Wolverine story. Like this one's not a uniquely Wolverine story, but it is a uniquely Nick Fury story. Again, that blue paint is phenomenal. A S.H.I.E.L.D. station in Venice is then attacked, and we get that familiar red that we've seen before. It's attacked by Scorpio, but this time Nick Fury is waiting. And he calls him Mr. So all of you regular viewers of previously in X-Men know it's time to take a drink. The 2 of them have it out and start yelling at each other. And Nick is starting to struggle with his age, having trouble keeping up. And he needs every move he has. as they end up underwater, and Scorpio gets the upper hand on him and gives him a good smack. And then he yells at him, "I'm Jacob Fury's son, your brother Jake, the brother you murdered, like I'm gonna murder you." And he escapes. But he's gonna come back and murder him. Neat that Scorpio key and the moonlight are these yellow and orange sort of elements against this blue and purple night. It's a real pleasure to read this because of those colors. Wolverine is still pursuing his angle. Mikael Fury, or whatever his last name is, he meets the mom, and she's sort of like the owner-operator of this establishment. Wolverine says he's going to do what he does best. He just tears through the first guy, about to go to work, and Scorpio shows up. Obviously, he's defensive of his mom. And Wolverine takes a beating. He's about to get killed. Instead, the lights suddenly go out. Nick Fury shows up, gives him a smack, using sort of his infrared tech, or whatever is going on here, and gets Nick gets Wolverine out. I like this open panel, right? It helps the readability of these three, and helps this one be clear from these two. And they get out into the streets, and Nick starts to reveal what he now knows. And we get another flashback, again with a different color palette. And this one is like just classic black and white almost. Looks really neat. Back in Nick's days in Macau, he is trying to get inside, become an insider in another espionage ring, or gambling and secrets and all that kind of stuff. And he gets close to this lady. I love his disguise here. Mustache patch, right? Like, is it Nick Fury? Yes, of course it is. And it's funny, this place is called Dimension Research, and my dad used to work at a company called Research Dimensions. Wait, is my dad Nick Fury? He sees that this woman, this femme fatale at the club, is hooked up with Jake Fury, Nick's kid brother. So, as a way to find out what's going on, Nick gets closer to her. They wine and dine. Oh my goodness. Uh-oh. And when he gets the evidence, he turns over to the local authorities. And Nick's brother becomes Scorpio, using one of the weapons that, I don't know where he gets that one. And it just destroyed them. And eventually he has to kill his brother. And the two of them have that chat. And Wolverine decides to pop his claws through their food. It's funny, Nick says, like, hey, how do you eat this stuff without using utensils? They're, eating in a Mediterranean spot. Probably, like I said before, near Turkey. And so Wolverine just skewers it. They get on their flight suits, some classic S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. We never really get to see a good shot of Wolverine in this outfit with the flight suit. It would have been pretty cool. And the landing is a little weird. I like to think that Wolverine can land kind of, feet first like that. But I would have liked to have seen a little more. And in they go using their tech and their senses, and they decide to raid this island where the woman and her son, Mikael, have been living. And they're going to go two different ways, spy style. Trying to gather information, not be seen. Great use of colors again to show a new location. And as Nick enters one of the rooms, sensors are triggered and it starts to autoplay on some giant monitor, which we all had back in the 80s, by the way. Her name is Amber, by the way. I keep forgetting her name is Amber. And the doors are sealed shut, and a gas is put into the room to knock Nick Fury out. Outside, an aircraft rose from the far end of the island, circled the silent building to be certain no one emerged, and then swiftly headed away. So that's Amber and Mikael. And then in Atlanta, Georgia, a SHIELD base is overrun quickly by Scorpio and his Scorpio key. Only to realize, oh my gosh, Nick and Wolverine are there. Wolverine had saved him. They just tell us quickly Wolverine saved him. And they quickly jetted there, knowing that's where Scorpio was going to destroy more stuff from SHIELD. Scorpio key goes. This one's like some white acrylic paint thrown on there and splatter. Looks pretty cool for an explosion. And Nick is just getting tired. Wolverine, wait, like he's just done. He doesn't have more in the tank. And Wolverine tells him, I have waited, Nick. You can't keep pace. He's mine. Wolverine wants revenge for his buddy David. And off they go. They're fighting. Wolverine's taking some shots. Scorpio goes up on this exterior elevator. Nick says of himself, he can't be so old, so tired. And up goes Scorpio and Wolverine to the vertical takeoff and landing plane. They continue fighting. Amber is there, and Wolverine gets the upper hand. Nick starts to try and stop the plane. He stops Amber. There you go. So Nick's got Mom. Wolverine is ready to kill the kid if he needs to. They're kind of a bit of a stalemate. Nick and Wolverine both want them to give up. Nick says, don't make me choose. Okay, so the plane is slowly moving with its rotors toward the turboprops, toward Wolverine and Mikhail. Oh, he stopped the plane, pardon me. He says, Wolverine, I've stopped the plane. Mikhail, I've stopped your mother too. There's no getting me without going through her. Don't make me choose between a friend and my brother's son. Meaning Wolverine the friend, and then his nephew. You don't want that, kid. Give it up. You too, Logan. And Amber says, we can't, Nicholas. Mikhail isn't Jake's son. He's yours. Shoot, Mickey. Kill him while there's a clear shot. So he's about to shoot. Wolverine takes the weapon out of his hand and chucks it. And they start to wrestle again. Nick's going to shoot one of them. Wolverine's got his claws in place. Nick has a shot. He's like down to the same choice. Harder to make, impossible to avoid. Takes the shot and boom. It's Mikhail. The plane explodes. Amber's got the weapon. Takes a few shots at Wolverine. He takes a really tough one there. Like, this is so cool because his whole body is being rocked. And you can see his skeleton is painted. It's a really neat effect. Nick is over with his son, trying to save his life. Amber melts down and starts to monologue. Die for me, Nicholas, she says at the end. Mikhail calls out, and Wolverine just gets her from behind. The kid tries to run away, but of course we've seen that that plane is disabled. SHIELD copters are getting in close. Kid gets anyway, takes it off. Nick and Wolverine jump on, and it just plunges off the tower and crashes through a skylight and smashes at the end. It's like a giant set piece. Nick is beaten up a little. Wolverine recovers. Mikhail's now got the Scorpio key to Wolverine's neck. Wolverine's got his claws to the kid's neck. Nick is begging them both to back down. And then Nick says, hey, don't do this. Don't kill him, please. David Nanjawara was actually selling secrets. Not the hero that you remember him to be. It's not worth you getting revenge. Let me try and help this kid. And Wolverine gets up off the kid and takes the Scorpio key. And maybe it's a starting point to make some progress. And then they decide to go their separate ways. Things have been cleaned up. Wolverine throws him a cigar and says, guess you're ready for this. A cigar? Oh, always, but what? Congratulations, Papa. As of course, it is revealed that Nick is a father. So it ends in kind of a joke. And that is the end. That's also a commonly used alternate cover. depending on some of the graphic novels or trade paperbacks you find this one in. It's a nice piece. That's the end of Wolverine Nick Fury, the Scorpio Connection. Overall, I actually really enjoyed it. It did not read like a regular comic from Marvel that I'm used to. Archie Goodwin is widely considered to be one of the best comics writers out of America. You know, from the 60s and 70s. He was for a long time the writer and editor of Eerie and Creepy from Warren Publishing. Those two magazines that were a level up from the regular newsprint comics coming out of companies like Marvel and DC. Warren was publishing magazines which were not beholden to the Comics Code Authority because they were not comics, they were magazines. So he was able to write stories for a more sophisticated reader in a time where there wasn't much else happening in the States in that respect. He was editor-in-chief at Marvel for a brief minute, I think. Not really the best job for him because he's a creative. But I think he was in the role in sort of the rotating time of editors-in-chief at Marvel just before Jim Shooter took over. But he's often regarded as a writer's best editor. Marvel had a line of magazines and other kind of comics publications called Epic in the 80s that was geared at, again, an older reader. So magazine style and graphic novel style stuff. And I believe that's where legendary French creator Mobius had work appearing in Epic. Did Akira get published in Epic too? So it was looking back, it's really kind of significant that Epic even existed in the first place. And Archie Goodwin was the custodian and probably project lead on that initiative. Very notable person in 20th century comics. So he has a really good sense of story and pacing and character and conflict. And like I said, this one, it could have been any other character matched with Nick Fury, but it just makes it work. It feels like a cop buddy movie or a spy buddy movie that we could have seen in a dozen franchises. But we get it in this set with Wolverine and Nick Fury. Neat that I finally got to read this. I'm grateful that I did. As far as Howard Chaykin goes, probably best known for his work on American Flag and beloved by a lot of people. He has a huge fan base. Next week, we are getting into Uncanny X-Men 252 as the hunt for Wolverine and Jubilee continues by the Reavers. That should be a blast. And that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you very much for hanging out with me while we covered The Scorpio Connection by Archie Goodwin and Howard Chaykin. You can find out more about my comics with my collaborator Chris Sanigan and our upcoming appearances at group-of-7comics.ca. You can follow us at Group of 7 Comics on social media. Please click like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with me your take on this graphic novel or any of the X-Men comics in general in the comment section below. Go dig out your old back issues, trade paperbacks, essentials, omnibuses, graphic novels, DVD-ROMs, bootlegs, or hop on an app and read along with us next week on Previously in X-Men. Thank you, bubs, and stay X-y.